Activity in the water industry is at an all-time high. The infrastructure bill and regulatory pressures are driving spending in the market, which is generating more projects than ever before.
I've been with Stantec and in water for going on 25 years
Mhm.
and never seen anything like this before. Just kind of a record level of activity, growth, opportunity, and it's really the result of a convergence of just multiple tailwinds.
We're all struggling with record workloads. The IIJA and the CHIPS Act and Inflation Reduction Act has just put a lot of money in the system, and a lot of it's come in the infrastructure space. We layer on top of that, which I would consider the headwinds, is we've got these kind of historic workloads. It's a very competitive talent market for our subject matter experts and scientists and engineers that work in this space.
Despite the workload concerns raised by industry executives, they are saying that they are able to manage them as they stand right now. And perhaps more importantly, you can actually see the work that is being done.
The discussion of onshoring, I think maybe at times a little bit overused, but at the same time, if you drive across the center part of our country and you look left and right, you see a lot of new construction underway.
With an increased workload comes another point of focus, one that has been on the top of everyone's minds in blue-collar industries for the past 3 to 5 years.
Finding skilled folks to work in the water industry is tougher these days. They're having tighter budgets, they have supply chain issues, all the while navigating global climate change. In today's world, the geopolitical issues that we're facing, that's a headwind that we see.
The workforce and capacity concerns are clear, but there is one nugget of information in that last comment that shines light on two things that we're seeing driving business decisions in 2024. Those are climate change and the circular economy.
Climate change is impacted by population growth, by water scarcity, and the whole global vulnerability to natural hazards. This has amplified the need for water resources planning, especially from a water scarcity and a water quality standpoint.
As noted, climate change is multifaceted. It has a number of drivers: population growth, water scarcity, water quality challenges, and they weren't alone in that sentiment.
We're seeing massive drivers around climate change and resiliency needs in that space. At the same time, we're seeing major impacts due to water scarcity. We've got new regulatory drivers in play, a drive around recognition around resource recovery benefits and a circular economy.
Seeming to run in parallel with the idea of climate change was the concept of the circular economy. And while this seems to be a newer trend in the water industry now, other industries have been working toward this trend for years. In fact, even the highest office in the land, the White House, has mentioned the circular economy as a critical component of the future of our country's success. Now, as I mentioned, the concept of the circular economy is much larger than just what the water industry sees in it. For example, Hillenbrand is a manufacturer of processing equipment for plastics and other industries, with customers in over 100 countries, including some Fortune 500 companies. In an interview with Plastics Recycling, an Endeavor Business Media brand, the Hillenbrand Chief Sustainability Officer and Vice President of Corporate Affairs, Tori Flynn, had this to say: "For sustainability to be realized, we must think outside our own four walls. We must apply systems thinking to our approach, which essentially looks at our larger sphere of influence and engages critical stakeholders and the value chain." The same can be said for water professionals in the circular economy. We must be asking ourselves how and where we dispose of biosolids, resin, membranes, granular activated carbon, and more. And it's not lost on these executives that water reuse and recycling is a critical component of that moving forward as well.
I would say the next regulation, one I'm actually really excited about, is direct potable reuse. And so again, we're helping to advise our clients in advanced treatment technologies and making sure they're in regulatory compliance for this.
The reclamation stuff, being able to recycle water and reclaim and do kind of this high performance water, enhanced water treatment, so to speak. That's another big area where we're seeing for growth, especially in the Southwest United States.
As an add-on to that, resource recovery is an important component as well. Wastewater systems receive a lot of waste through those flows, but some of that can actually be used, captured, and then resold or repurposed for other things in the future.
There is a lot of inherent benefit, right, in our waste streams, and really taking the opportunity to capture that, whether it's from a nutrient recovery perspective, it's from a bioenergy perspective. I think we're seeing a lot more recognition that there's value there.
Utility managers and operators in the past 3 to 5 years have felt the pressure and burden of regulatory change beyond the scope of what they're normally used to. Add in the state level changes, and it creates a really challenging environment for these operators and utility managers to succeed and thrive, particularly those in small communities where one person is handling the drinking water, the wastewater, the parks, the roads, and everything in between. And chief among those concerns are per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, also known as PFAS.
The interesting thing with the evolution of the PFAS discussion has been, okay, this is going to be a regulated contaminant. What are we going to do? To where does that end? From a business perspective, we're looking to ensure that we're prepared depending upon where the regulatory framework falls, whether that's from a water perspective or from a waste perspective. It will have a very different impact.
We've been seeing, from a more progressive standpoint, quite a bit of activity in the space over the last, I'd say, like year and a half, like even ahead of like certain regulations coming into place. And so that is definitely one that's like very, very top of mind right now, and like increasing activity almost like on a week by week basis.
These PFAS regulations are multifaceted, and water workers are feeling the squeeze from every angle. On the drinking water end, you have the maximum contaminant levels for what's allowable in drinking water. On the wastewater side, you have a risk assessment and biosolids that's still forthcoming on what happens to the solids at the end and if there's PFAS in it. You have proposals to add PFAS to CERCLA and RCRA, the Superfund and the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, as hazardous substances, which will change the way that we interact with them throughout the regulatory process. And there's also the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, which already has some things in place for how to regulate these chemicals in waterways. And that's just 5 things specific to PFAS alone that I've talked about here. I haven't even talked about the lead and copper rule for making sure that there's replacement of lead service lines across the country, the growing concern of microplastics in both drinking water and wastewater sources, and even from stormwater sources. And perhaps most close to home for a lot of the folks in the wastewater industry, state regulations on nutrient reduction limits. What I've shared here is only a fraction of all the things happening in the drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater markets that comprise the water industry. If you want to learn more from these executives on all the different things that I discussed with them in terms of trends and business drivers, you can check out the full unedited videos on our channel right now. There's a bunch of them linked in the video description, or you can click on any of the boxes you see on your screen right now. If you like this format and this video, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. We're looking to do more of these throughout the year in 2024 and cover some other topics, the next of which I'm hoping will be cybersecurity.